12 countries are now carrying out military operations in Syria, and Great Britain also taking that plunge, although a lot of criticism has been thrown on the table that the attacks on the air alone are not enough to bring down the likes of ISIS. The British Prime Minister expressed in Parliament that 70,000 fighters who oppose Assad, meaning the rebels, are not extremist groups and are able to join in the fight against the Islamic State. Of course, Russia and Assad are fighting off those claims, amplifying that all those that oppose the Assad dictatorship are in fact terrorists and correspond to the ISIS ideology. But this is all he said, she said, and we're here so we can take advantage of that. Let's talk to some of the 70,000 that everyone's throwing their assumptions on.
For our dispatch, we head out of central Aleppo towards the Turkish border. The route we're on soon takes us off the main roads, and this is because we want to reach Mara. It's a village that now serves as a military front line against ISIS. The drive there is a long one, and given the circumstances, can bring about many surprises.
To the right of this road is where Syrian regime forces are situated, and to the left over there are two areas, Nubul and Zahra, which are where Shiite militias are that are very much supportive of Assad. We have to drive through this road pretty fast. It's heavily bombarded by Russian and Syrian air force. Driving through here at night is impossible because you'd have to drive without your lights on. So we have to head there and back before it's dark.
We make our first stop, and it's a checkpoint for the Free Syrian Army. Security here is very tight, and there's constant worry that ISIS would disguise themselves to infiltrate rebel territory. This man is in charge at this station, and he's informing his commander about our presence. And we're now in the company of an FSA officer who's going to help us make it to that very front line. As we head on, we're confronted with checkpoint after checkpoint. It was obvious there was no room for any mistakes here. Eunice, the officer with us, was from these areas, but that didn't seem to make procedure any easier. Only 2 kilometers from our first checkpoint, but 2 hours later, we make it to our destination. This is the Mara front of Aleppo against ISIS.
ضد داعش
نعم.
في معارك يومية؟
يوميا اشتباكات. شلون بضربوا قذايف هاون وبيستعملوا الدوشكا رشاش وبيستعملوا قناصات. هن يعني طبعا داعش.
والطيران عم يضربهم لهم؟
لا ما بضرب الجيش الحر.
الطيران ما عم يضرب هناك؟
ما في.
هون عم يضرب؟
ايوه بضربنا هون طرفات عزاز.
يعني انتم عم تقاتلوا النظام وداعش.
وروسيا وكل الكل.
We now head further in to meet the commander of this front. It's a short walk, but a heavy sprint. Snipers are on the ready for anyone attempting to cross.
Over that hill over there is where ISIS is situated, and it's about 1 kilometer away from where we are. So we're at the closest point to ISIS at the moment.
عدونا هو داعش تنظيم الدولة. نحن مرابطين هلا نحن عليهم.
قد ايه مسافتهم من هون؟
للتل 1 كيلومتر.
بوتين صرح انه عم يدعم الجيش الحربي ب4 مدن بسوريا واحدهم حلب. شو ردك؟ شو ردك على هاي التصريح؟
هو ما بدنا يدعمنا، بدنا يشيل طيرانه ويحلق من هون، بس ما بدنا يدعمنا، بس يشيل طيرانه. نحن قادرين ان شاء الله على داعش، بس هو عم يأزر داعش بقصفنا. اليوم الطيار الروسي بدل ما يعني هاي مو انه بده يحاربوا التنظيم الدولي، هاي تنظيم الدولة، هاي نقاط تنظيم الدولة. فإمكانك تجيب يا اخي كينك 1 كيلومتر طلع التلات دشاب. يعني
فيني اسالك سؤال؟ لا. قبل شوي كنا عم نحكي وقلت لي انه العالم بتعرف شو عم بيصير هون.
ما بيعرف العالم وين عم يقصف، وسائل الاعلام ما في اكثر منه. طيار روسي بيقول لك عم بيستهدف داعش.
فقدته
طيار روسي عم بيقول لك عم بيستهدف داعش، كذب الحكي، عم بيستهدفنا قلنا. قلت لك برجع بعيد الجواب، عم يقصف الخطوط الثانية لاشغالنا، عم يقصف قرانا اهلنا ليشغلنا. هو مع داعش.
انتوا ضد داعش؟
نحن ضد داعش. نحن ضد داعش لانه بغوا على العباد وظلموا. تنظيم اجرام.
So here it is. These rebel groups not only oppose Assad, but also the Islamic State. And with the absence of international media on the ground in Syria, this has been lost in translation. Speaking to many of the fighters here, they all tell me we feel abandoned and that this isn't just a fight against ISIS, that it's in fact the world fighting against Islam. And if this wasn't the case, they ask, why aren't we being supported in fighting off extremism? And why are Russia's jet fighters in the sky attacking us and allowing ISIS to expand to our areas? Shows you what misinformation can do for you. And as Malcolm X once said, if you're not careful, the newspapers have you hating the oppressed and loving those doing the oppressing.
شو صار هلا؟
بده يجي طيران الروسي يقصف مناطقنا.
كيف عرفتوا؟
المراصد عم عمموا هالشيء.
انتوا يعني عم تسمعوا عليهم.
عم نسمع.
وين المشكلة يا زلمة؟ هلا بنشوف هلا الدليل أكبر برهان. صحيح. هلا بصير مش فاطينة.
يعني
With a Russian warplane coming and a mud route infested with snipers, taking the ride back this time seemed the better option.
Quite a long route it took to get to that front line, and we were very close to the first sort of presence of ISIS in Syria. This isn't very far from the Turkish border either, and it means that ISIS is very close to being able to cut off any routes that lead to central Aleppo. And this is the fear of people in Aleppo and these fighting groups, and that's why they're stationed here to prevent that from happening. However, the Russian airstrikes and Syrian airstrikes are actually helping push ISIS towards these areas because they're actually landing on this side and not on the other side, which is the ISIS territory.
Driving back from here to Aleppo city, we see the effects of Syrian and Russian airstrikes and the echoes of Syrians screaming in the background. Why are you attacking us? ISIS isn't here. It's unfortunate, because ISIS doesn't seem to be the target. Rami Jarrah for Anna Press, Aleppo.